Allow me to live and breathe like a man.
You've heard his words on classic albums like Pacific Ocean Blue and Friends. His 1969 collaboration with Brian Wilson, A World of Peace Must Come, gained almost legendary status as one of pop's most storied lost albums, before being resurrected to great acclaim by Light in the Attic in 2008. Now you're cordially invited to take a trip into the mind of poet and songwriter Stephen J. Kalinich. Heyday Again Records presents I Love My Life, a postcard from one of the last standing poets of peace and excitation. Order your copy today. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich and Friends. You'll see why heavy hitters like Brian Wilson, Dennis Wilson, Paul McCartney, Steve Cropper, P.F. Sloan, and Diana Ross have all worked with him. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich. Order today at realgonemusic.com. Again, that's realgonemusic.com. As the CSNY tour loomed, Stephen comes back from England, where he had just done 25 sessions in 27 days on his debut self-titled solo record. That was the first time that you had noticed that he had descended into cocaine madness, right?
Yeah, there was a time when, we nearly lost Stephen. A couple of times, actually, when the doctors had to come and, sort him out. Yeah, I realized that he was very dependent on cocaine. Now, in 1984, at the end of a CSN tour, after tour party, and I went down there and I saw people just smiling and grinning, except the smile was on their lips, but not in their eyes. And I realized that I probably looked the same to them, and stopped cocaine immediately.
Yeah, that was December of 84.
Never went back.
You literally haven't done it once since then?
No, not once.
Welcome to Discograffiti, the music obsessives podcast that gives freaks like you and me the chance to connect with the brotherhood obsessed with rating the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever mattered. I'm your host, Dave Gebrow, and with 4 new episodes each week, you're going to gain a comprehensive knowledge of an act's history and output in the time it takes to listen to one album. Each new guest swings a hard left into an area you either had no idea you needed to know about or know all about and can't believe you're not alone out there. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on Crosby, Stills, and Nash, along with our special guest, Graham Nash. This episode is part of a series called Wild Tales, the Graham Nash Interview Series, in which we discuss every last release the great Graham Nash ever had a hand in creating, including CSN, CSNY, CNN, and his solo career, and it details a history almost too crazy to be believed. Here are just a few of the many things that Graham and I discuss in this podcast. The 1968 night during which Graham smoked some hash and managed to write 3 classic songs in the director's cut only, CSN's one rule as a group by which they lived in the director's cut only, the early CSN band members who fell by the wayside while they were coming together as a group in Sag Harbor, also only in the director's cut, the 9-week, 3,000-mile boat journey that Crosby and Nash took before the release of Deja Vu, how the $7 million 1970 CSNY tour broke down in chaos, the batshit crazy way that Fuzzy Samuels managed to cope with the chaotic tone of the 1970 CSNY gigs, how the Ohio single happened, the Fillmore East show during which Stephen Stills pulled out the stops to showboat for Bob Dylan, how CSNY initially broke up, and an in-depth deep dive on Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young's Ohio 45 and 4-Way Street double live LP. If you're a Graham Nash and CSNY superfan like me, you'll want to turn this free version off right now and opt for the director's cut of this episode on our Patreon page, which is ad-free and features 14 additional minutes of essential material. And you can find it in our Patreon shop for mere pennies at patreon.com/discograffiti/shop. Here's what you're missing this week if you're not a Patreon member. If you're a member at the private tier, you're missing out on the director's cut of Part 6 of our Pet Sounds Deep Dive, plus our exclusive interview with Wrecking Crew keyboard player Larry Knechtel. If you're a member at the Lieutenant tier, you're missing out on the Larry Knechtel interview, and if you're a member at the Major tier, well, you're not missing a single thing, because the Major tier gives you access to everything that Discograffiti releases. So don't miss out. Open up your listening app right now and subscribe. And away we go then.
Hey, kid.
Okay, let's jump back in the timeline. After you answer this one question, I want you to put the following 3 bands in order of greatness from best to least.
Okay.
The Hollies, Buffalo Springfield, and the Byrds.
I would totally reverse that.
Okay, really?
Yeah, I would go Birds, Buffalo Springfield, and the Hollies.
That would be my answer too, by the way.
Ah, interesting.
It would. I love the Hollies.
I did too.
You're talking about 3 great bands, though.
Yeah, the Birds and the Springfield were forward sounding. There was a great future in what they were doing, and the time out to me, the Hollies were just singing songs that they made up, that were very simple and very ordinary.
You're tough on them.
Yeah.
You are tough on them. It's interesting. And I know, without even having to ask, that you've had times in your life where you realized you were tough on them and started liking the music more, and then became tough on them again.
Yeah. True.
We left off after Deja Vu, which was released on March 11th, 1970, but we're not at the release yet. When you finished your debut record the year prior, you never wanted the process to end, whereas after Deja Vu, it was good riddance, right?
Not so much good riddance, but thank God, David and I went down, on his boat to Mexico, I think.
Not just Mexico. It was January 23rd, 1970. You guys got on the Mayan, and for 7 straight weeks, from Fort Lauderdale to San Diego, you went 3,000 miles. And
Yep.
You had an adventure that most people do not live in their whole life.
That's right. That was my first sail. The story is that we were in Fort Lauderdale. David's boat, the Mayan, was docked there also. And Crosby calls me and he says, "Hey, Willie, do you want to go for a sail?" And I go, "Well, I've never sailed, but, it sounds good." Now, I'm thinking we get up in the morning, we smoke a big joint, we go out on the ocean, we see some dolphins, we smoke another joint, we come back, smoke another, get some dinner at some great restaurant and go to bed. Hey, no problem. Nope. 9 weeks.
It's so funny. I mean, it sounds like the whole thing was a dream come true, including the fact that you wound up writing half of the first Crosby and Nash record on that trip.
That's true.
Between the two of you guys, that's half the record.
It was a great time.
The only time that was not spectacular was in Panama when Joni joined the trip, right?
That's right. Joni and I were at loggerheads with several items, and it was an uncomfortable time. And Joni finally left after 2 or 3 days, and, we carried on sailing.
I'm not going to describe the bowl of cornflakes and a spanking incident because I want to underscore the importance of people actually buying and reading your autobiography. But It sounds like at that point it was all over except the fat lady singing. But you were holding out hope, and you had purchased a house for the 2 of you in the Haight District. But You hadn't told her because you wanted to surprise her after doing a bunch of work to it, right?
Yep. I found the house. It was $53,000. Think about that. A building, a whole building of 4 floors, on Buena Vista West, which was a beautiful part of the Haight. And Haight Ashbury was, 2 blocks away.
I lived at 439 Haight at Webster.
Ah, so you were right in the middle of it, right?
Yeah.
So it was a house that I bought for me and Joan, and I spent, I don't know, close to $500,000 on redesigning and rebuilding the entire house.
Did you ever tell her that you bought the house for both of you?
Uh-huh.
You did, okay. So you got that telegram while she was in Crete. She's got away with words, doesn't she?
Yes, she does. The telegram was very simple. It just said, if your hand is full of sand and you squeeze it tightly, the sand will just run away. Words to that effect.
Yeah.
I was laying a new kitchen floor in the house in Laurel Canyon on Lookout Mountain.
And you pretty much immediately hightailed it over to the Chateau Marmont, which is where rock and rollers go when they're having a tough time, right?
Seems that way, doesn't it? But I did spend a lot of time at the Chateau.
Yeah.
I deliberately rented the penthouse, which was infamous for having incredible parties of Hollywood film stars there, and I wanted to be in that atmosphere. I wanted to soak up all what I knew. But yeah, it was a great hotel. It was very private. We rented, me and David in 75, I think, rented one of the outside building rooms, which had a huge garden at the back and stuff, and that's where we put together Wind on the Water.
Yeah, next to Art Garfunkel.
Uh-huh. And it was the same apartment that Belushi died in.
Yeah. Now, the day that you went to the Chateau, that very day, did you write Simple Man?
I don't know whether it was that very day, but it was that time, yes.
It was that one, I Used to Be a King in Stranger's Room.
Right.
Was there a part of you that you think that was courting chaos in order to squeeze out material?
No, it just happened to me. I didn't welcome the depressive mood I was in. It just happened to me. I was very depressed about me and John, but at the same time, I realized that it was over and wrote those songs and started to look for a beautiful, intelligent woman again.
It didn't take long.
Yeah.
You definitely landed on your feet quickly. Thank God.
Well, if it's over, it's over,
Yeah, easy to say that. What's the most recent song that you at least partially wrote about Joni? Was it in the 70s or was it?
Mama Lion, maybe?
Okay, so 75.
Yeah.
All right, so in my mind, I'm thinking that she's actually, it's like a Frankenstein combination through the 70s, 80s, 90s, that she enters into that equation somehow.
Right, indeed.
Okay, so as the CSNY tour loomed, Stephen comes back from England where he had just done 25 sessions in 27 days on his debut self-titled solo record, which is his best record by a mile. And that was the first time that you had noticed that he had descended into cocaine madness, right?
Yeah, there was a time when, we nearly lost Stephen. A couple of times, actually, when the doctors had to come and, sort him out. Yeah, I realized that he was very dependent on cocaine. Now, in 1984, at the end of a CSN tour that ended up at the Kahala Hilton in Hawaii, after tour party was going on, I was on, I don't know, the 9th floor and the party was on the 7th floor. And I went down there and I saw people just smiling and grinning, except the smile was on their lips, but not in their eyes. And I realized that I probably looked the same to them and stopped cocaine immediately.
Yeah, that was December of 84.
Yeah, never went back.
You literally haven't done it once since then?
No, not once.
Amazing. You really aren't an addict. I mean, to be able to just leave it behind you like that. But honestly, it's amazing still thinking of what you went through with Amy, with David, all these things that had happened that was, to some people, would be all the evidence they needed. Because I think in your book, somewhere around 75, 76, you start talking about how it's becoming old news.
Yeah, it was getting in the way,
Yeah, because if there was no such thing as cocaine, it's possible you guys might not have even had any personality issues as a band.
It's possible. We'll never know, of course. But listen to the music that we made in the last, 50 odd years.
Yeah.
It's been pretty amazing. Between me and David and Stephen, between me and David and Stephen and Neil, between me and David, between me, a lot of really fine music has been made. And yes, cocaine may have gotten in the way. The absence of cocaine may have been different. Don't know. We'll never know.
The amazing thing about your music, though, is it's very clear to me usually when cocaine has entered the creative process. For example, and no slight on him because I love Jefferson Airplane, but if you look at mid to late 70s Jefferson Starship, that's coke music. You can hear it. It's a steely, emotionless, you can hear a distance, you can hear an iciness to the tone of the creativity involved. But that rarely enters the picture with you guys, except for Steven's music sometimes later on. But otherwise, I don't hear it ever from you, ever. From David, Once in a Blue Moon, Out of the Darkness is a coke song, because that's a guy lying to himself. But it doesn't sound like coke music. It's just, I think, the drugs doing the songwriting.
You may be right.
Okay, so the tour is set to roll out that same month, May 1970, but Greg Reeves foolishly begins pushing for the idea of him playing his own songs live, which is insane to even think about. And so a few days before your very first gig in Denver, Greg is canned and enter Fuzzy Samuels. In addition, Neil and Steven had entered a phase that you lovingly call Steven and Neil the Dark Side, right? So, which of course emanates from Neil being pissed at the mountains of cocaine that Steven was snorting his way through. So,
and he also didn't like Dallas. He said that Dallas just can't play his music.
Well, Dallas is to Steven what Elliot was to Neil.
Yes, very much so.
Right?
Tied together, yeah.
Yeah. So for good reason, I think. So talk to me about that era where Steven would, that gig in Denver, obviously, was maybe the first time where Steven, for whatever reason, maybe from some insecurity, showboats his way through an entire gig. What is that like to be on the stage with somebody?
We tried to do the best we could, always. The Reliability Brothers, as we talked about, it was more difficult to bring them up. But to a certain degree, we still kept to that, unspoken rule about, we're going to do this, so let's do it the best way we can. And we overcame everything, and those shows were pretty decent. But it was very obvious that something was going on drug-wise. And obviously, the drug was cocaine.
Okay, so Steven showboats his way through that whole first gig. Neil walks off stage toward the end, doesn't come out for the encore. After sound check the next day in Chicago, Steven wanders off. You, David, and Neil fire Dallas, call off the tour, and leave Chicago on the first plane out without even informing Steven that you're leaving. This is the first instance of about 700 times where you guys do this kind of stuff to each other, which as an outside observer is fascinating, but had to have been such a pain in the ass. I can't even, for you and for everyone. Steven comes back and finds out there's no longer a show or a band.
That's right. He came to sound check and no one was there. I mean, the crew had set everything up, of course, So he walks in and he goes, okay, let's start. And the rest of the crew had to tell him that me and David and Neil had already left for Los Angeles.
So that was a $7 million tour you guys blew off. You guys lost a fortune, but it had to have been a good thing because enter the great Johnny Barbada. You guys rent out a soundstage at Warner Brothers where they just filmed They Shoot Horses, Don't They? An incredible movie about marathon dancers. And there's a sign that hung over the stage door that read what?
Will they last?
How long will they last?
How long will they last, right? That's where Bill Cosby came in one day with a bullwhip as a sound check. And he kept cracking the bullwhip, go on, get going. But that was the addition of Barbada and Fuzzy Samuels was great. I don't know whether Fuzzy ever took cocaine. I'm sure he must have done at some point, but they were relatively clean. Let's say that.
Well, you write in your book that Fuzzy was apparently so freaked out once you got on the road by the tone of the gigs that you heard at that time that he took acid every single day of the tour, just to cope. I honestly don't know how somebody takes acid to cope.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
However we got through that, and Fuzzy was on acid a lot, yeah.
Oh, hi, I'm Dave Gebrow. I threw my career as a licensed hearing instrument specialist in the trash, sold my house, and moved to the East Coast with my wife and 5-year-old son in order to focus on making the ultimate weekly podcast for music obsessives thrive. But weekly wasn't enough for me, so I bumped it up to 4 shows a week. Becoming a subscriber to Discograffiti's Patreon gives you access to hundreds of exclusive episodes. As a 2-show per week private, you get the weekly show by and for our Patreon family, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. As a 3-show-a-week lieutenant, you'll get early release, ad-free, extended director's cuts of the main show. They're the shows as they were intended to be heard. Plus, you'll gain access to half the Patreon archive and the upcoming Beach Boys Behind the Mirror companion episodes, which will feature dozens of special guests from within the Beach Boys camp talking about and rating their music. But as a 4-show-per-week major, you'll be drowning in a flood of must-hear binge listening, because I'll be bombarding you with episodes about super cool bands that are too subterranean for free Fridays. It's like going to music college, but with a tuition that makes all kinds of sense. Plus, our entire Patreon archive is yours. Discograffiti's Top 10, our Buried Treasure show, Rock Cousteau, our Slag Off show, Queasy Listening, and the Private Press with Paul Major. And all that for the price of only a cup of coffee a week. Times are tough, you say? Fret not, because there's a $1 tier. Or you could just join as a basic member and buy episodes piecemeal from our Patreon shop. Don't risk feeling badly about yourself by not giving. Check out patreon.com/discograffiti to find the tier that's right for you. Once again, that's patreon.com/discograffiti. So we're not on tour yet. It's early May 1970, and Kent State has just happened. In a lot of ways, Ohio, backed with Find the Cost of Freedom, is sort of the apotheosis of who you are as a band, what you stand for. You know, that town crier thing, the folk tradition really coming into play.
Yes.
And also, interestingly enough, when we get closer to modern day and Neil comes back into the picture in the 80s and 90s and has the mistaken idea that you guys are a folk band and starts flooding your records with these sometimes very listless folk songs, it's like he forgot that you guys were sometimes at your best when you did these raw, shit-kicking rock songs.
Yeah, Ohio was a very interesting point in our lives. The story of how it happened is that David and Neil were up in Northern California in a cottage that Steve Cohen owned. Steve Cohen was our lighting director at that point. And David and Neil were there, and David showed Neil a magazine with the cover of one of the slain students that were, murdered at Kent State. And he said he saw Neil looking at it, picking up his acoustic guitar, walking outside into the woods, just around the cottage, and came back with Ohio. I was in Los Angeles. So was Stephen. I was staying in Stephen's house. Crosby called me and said, do me a favor, book the record plant, book studio, book Bill Halverson, tell Fuzzy and Barbado what we're doing. We're coming down. We want to record this song called Ohio. And I did what David asked. I booked the studio. I booked Halverson. I told Fuzzy and John what we were doing. And they came down, and the next day we recorded Ohio. I think we did 3 takes of it. One of them was the take that we loved. We mixed it right then. We realized that we wanted it out as a single, so we needed a B-side. So we did Find the Cost of Freedom a couple of times and chose the best take, mixed it, and we gave that to Armor to put out as a single. Now, at the time, we had Teacher Children in the top 30 going up into the charts. And Armor said, hey, you're a little nuts if you want to do this. You put this single out, but we thought it was more important that the American people know what happened to relatively peaceful protesters in Kent State, with their God-given right to protest when their government was doing something wrong in their name. And what was wrong in their name right then was the secret bombing of Cambodia that was put together by Nixon and Henry Kissinger. So we did want it out immediately, and we told Armor we don't care about a new hit with Teacher Children. We care about them knowing what happened and put it out. And somewhere in I think maybe Gary Burden's files somewhere is the design for the 45 sleeve, which was a copy of the Constitution with 4 bullet holes in it.
Right, that was the unused one. Without the bullet holes is what became the cover, right?
Yeah.
Just a couple of things about that. First of all, you really do walk it like you talk it, because Teach Your Children is your song, and it was shooting up the charts. It was doing very, very well. It's one thing to talk a big game about this stuff, and a lot of people do, but unless I have my history wrong, it was you really pulling for replacing and swapping out these songs on the charts.
It was my decision because it was my song.
Right.
But once again, the Reliability Brothers came with Neil, and we knew that we wanted to put it out as a single, regardless of Teach Your Children going up the charts.
And then for whatever reason, Amit was actually there at the session, which is good because he made sure that it was released in only 2 weeks' time. And then Find the Cost of Freedom, I have to just describe, just to paint a picture of the setup, because that was recorded in a half hour, and it was the four of you gathered around one mic in a square formation, and all you did was sing it and then double it.
That's right.
Amazing.
Stephen and Neil on acoustic guitars.
And I believe that the song was cut from the Easy Rider soundtrack, where it would have accompanied the end where Dennis Hopper gets killed.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't really know the reason why it was not part of the movie, but I think it was some kind of publishing bullshit going on.
I mean, Ballad of Easy Rider is a great song, but this really would have worked. It would have sent shivers down the viewer's spine. That's
what we designed it to do, because we want to make people feel something. That's what our music is. Feel what we're doing. Feel what we're talking about. Feel about it and do something about it.
I give this 5 stars. It seems crazy to even rate it, but yeah, 5 stars.
God bless you.
What do you give this?
6.
So far, you've given everything 6. All right, so you guys regroup in June for a 5-night stand at the Fillmore East. Now you guys are cooking. So this show, I've always wanted to hear a bootleg of this. The Wednesday night show culminates in an extended solo set at the Fillmore East, where you guys find out that Bob Dylan's in the audience, and Steven decided he's going to pull out all the stops and just make Bob's jaw hit the ground with what a Captain Many-Hands he is. So he takes 3 solos to every other guy's 1 solo. I'm guessing this was the most severe case ever of Steven showboating, right?
It sure was. And my main memory of that is going crazy with Stephen afterwards, saying, all of us had good songs that we wanted to sing. We knew Dylan was in the audience, and, we needed to sing more songs. But Stephen did 3. One of them, I think, was America's Children, which was like a piano song that went on for at least 7 or 8 minutes. And my main memory of it, as I said, was of talking to Stephen, yelling at Stephen afterwards. And he had a beer can in his hand. And as I was ranting and raving to him, he completely crushed the beer can in his hand, with the beer flowing out through the top and all over his hands. I remember that distinctly.
My God. You talk in your book a lot about how much weed you smoked during that tour. Now, I'm guessing you guys are on drugs most, if not all of the time. So for you to even mention that you smoked a lot of weed must mean that you smoked a lot of weed. So do you remember any particular instances where things really got out of hand in that regard?
I don't know. We were all high all the time, I can't remember a specific incident, but there were several of them for sure.
Okay, after the tour, this is at least the month that the tour ends, July 1970, Stephen calls you at the Chateau Marmont and asks you and David to come lay down a vocal track for Love the One You're With. And what followed should actually have been the music video for the song, because it was the perfect instance of life imitating art, wasn't it? It's like he wrote the song about what was about to happen to him because he wrote the song.
Yeah, it was. It was the first night that we had met Rita Coolidge. And I really fell in love with her that night. And I asked her out the next day to, I think, a swap meet or a museum or something. And she said, yeah. And what happened is that Stephen called her and said that I was ill and couldn't make the date, so could he? And for some reason, Stephen and Rita were together for about 10 days. In the meantime, I'm talking with Rita and I'm realizing that I have never kissed her, but I wanted to spend time with her, and that we have to tell Stephen, that you're in the wrong place. You're where you want to be, but you're not where you belong. Is one of the lines I wrote in Better Days, and so we did. Rita and I went to Stephen's house and we told him, and he turned around and spit on me, but he missed. I think his friend Dan Campbell was there too to witness this insanity. And then Rita and I were together for the next couple of years.
And that was the end of the band, kind of, for now anyway.
Yep, it was.
This episode is brought to you in part by Bespoke LA. Located in the Fairfax district of Los Angeles, Bespoke LA is the modern podcaster's dream come true. It's got 2 podcast pods available, one with audio only and the other with both audio and video. Just think, you can start your own podcast tomorrow without investing a single penny in equipment. What, you don't have experience editing? Don't even sweat it. For an additional fee, Bespoke LA can edit your podcast. Or not, it's entirely up to you. Rates start at $75 an hour with discounts if you book 4 sessions at once. Go to bespokela.com/podcast. That's BSPOKELA.com/podcast for more information or to book your time today. And be sure to tell them that Dave sent you for a one-time 25% discount. And, this is an interesting point to me. I want to talk about a few things because it's just endlessly interesting for me to think about. Although you guys could agree on all the causes you believed in and the music and so many things, you guys fought over everything. I mean, from women to drugs. You didn't have to look very far for something to squabble over.
But it was all important. We thought it was very important, those little tiny things.
I know.
Were important, and we did fight a lot. But once again, I keep coming back to look at all the music we really did make.
The music's beyond compare. As you'll see as we go through this, at least for me, there's nothing that you have ever done that to me goes under 3 stars. And I mean through your entire career. I mean, at your worst, I think you're good. And at your best, it's incomparable. And that goes to present day. I mean, for example, I think the 3 last songs on This Path Tonight are probably your best 3-song stretch in the entire history of you making music.
What were the last 3? I can't remember.
I'm talking about Golden Days, what's the other one, and Encore.
Oh, right, yeah. Right.
Those 3 songs are unbearably intense. And I don't think there's anything you've ever written that actually can touch those 3. So to me, you never lost the thread. I think there's other guys in the group that had issues musically. I don't think you were one of those guys. I don't even have a problem with Innocent Eyes, and we'll get there.
A lot of This Path Tonight was my relationship with Shane Fontaine. Shane and I decided that it was so crazy, why don't we just write on this tour? At least that is a solid thread that we can keep a hold of. And what we did was I would write lyrics. I would send them to Shane in his hotel room, and he would come back with the melody that would just knock me on my ass. Particularly,
Did you write all those melodies?
He wrote all the melodies.
Not Encore. Encore was around for a while, wasn't it?
No.
He wrote that melody.
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're just writing the words, kind of like a Shadow Captain?
Right, and particularly a beautiful melody like Myself at Last.
Yes.
I had those lyrics, for a while, but I'd started a relationship with Amy, who, of course, later became my wife and still is, thank God. But yeah, we wrote 22 songs in that tour.
Amazing. All right, I got to bring us back to present day because you're a nail biter too, huh?
Yeah.
Mine are so bad. It's my first addiction, and it's the hardest.
Mine too, and it's the hardest, right?
I saw a hypnotist once, and I stopped for 6 months. I couldn't believe it. I was getting manicures to see. All right, so how would you define the term supergroup?
Just like it is a combination of 3 or 4 people that were always good musicians in their own right, and famous in their own right, and talented in their own right, that come together to form a band that's never been done. Very much like Traveling Wilburys,
Yeah.
I guess we were a supergroup too.
So I know, or at least I'm guessing, that CSN represented freedom for you initially, but did being in a supergroup eventually become a massive albatross for you where it was almost like daydreaming of being in the Hollies again?
Not really. I take everything day by day. I hardly think about the past. And, as we've said before, life is full of choices. You either do this or you do that. And your life is whatever choice you make. And so, that's why I choose to only think about the good times that me and Crosby had. I don't want to think about the bad times. And there were many of them, but I don't want to think about them. Yeah. I want to think about the music that we made and the laughs that we had as friends for over 50 years. But yeah, I love being, I was going to say free, but in a word, it's really right. I'm on my own. I don't have to ask anyone's opinion about what I need to do. I'm playing with a band that love my music. That, for instance, I want you to do the Sleep song the other night. And they said, okay, let's do it. And I said, no, we have to rehearse it first. And they said, why? We know it. And we did a great version of the Sleep song, just great. And it made me smile. And I smile a lot with this band. Yeah. And that's a great thing for me at my age.
You deserve it, man. I mean, reading about some of this stuff, it is agonizing just to read.
Yeah.
I mean, mainly, honestly, it's fucking Neil. Seriously, it's like a time bomb, basically.
Very much so.
I mean,
a lot of people think the best thing that happened to CSN was Neil. Yeah. And a lot of people think that the worst thing that happened to CSN was Neil.
Right. Okay, so I think most importantly, though, at this juncture, and I'm sure you thought of this at the time, and maybe you didn't think about it consciously, but with the Beatles having broken up and Dylan in hibernation raising a family and, crazy fucking crackpots going through his garbage pail looking for clues and things like that, do you think, with the benefit of hindsight, that accepting, even if it wasn't consciously, accepting the responsibility of becoming the new countercultural figureheads of the Woodstock Nation, that taking that on and having to point the way forward as leaders for America's young and searching was too much of a burden for the three or four of you to shoulder?
No, because we never thought that way. We only thought that what we were doing is as much true as possible in our music. So we were only talking to ourselves. I mean, we were obviously talking to a lot of people who bought the records and stuff and saw the videos and stuff, but we would just concentrate in on being the best that we could be. And the fact that, people thought that we were the voice of a generation is very flattering. But it was only these four guys, with four egos and four ways of making records and four ways of living life. And all that music came out of that kind of a feeling that we wanted to do the best we could and tell the truth as much as we could.
You're telling me that laying in bed at night, you didn't feel that pressure at all?
No, not at all.
That's amazing. It really is amazing. I mean, I would feel excited as well. But along with that, come that burden of quote unquote responsibility, whatever that means. I guess mostly because you're a guy who seems like he really has his feet on the ground. I know that, Coke was part of your story for a long time, but you seem like a reasonable chap to me. Something that a few of your bandmates don't seem quite as grounded as you. So,
well, no, it comes a lot from my childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, World War II that we fought against the Germans, I made it through that. English people made it through that war. I mean, don't forget it. It was only a few years, really, blink of an eye, really, since World War I against the Germans. And so, if you make it through 2 world wars and you still can retain your humanity, God bless you. And that's what gave me the strength to tolerate all this madness and only concentrate on trying to make the music better.
Okay, so just to touch on this, I don't want to spend too much time on it. 4-Way Street, did you assemble that initially?
I think the three of us did it initially. I did a lot of the mixing, with Halverson. And I think at some point, Neil wants to re-engineer that to, bring it up to today's quality. It was a good record, though.
I like 4-Way Street, and from what I understand, I know it got like kind of mediocre reviews when it came out, and I know at least when it came out, none of you were really happy with it, right?
No, because we were sometimes a little out of tune, and I can't stand that. And Neil wouldn't change any of the vocals at all. And so we had to put it out the way it was. And unfortunately, I didn't think it was good enough.
Right.
That's why I did the 74 tour, because of the same thing. I'd heard a bootleg of it, but we were better than that. We were a better rock and roll, and I wanted for people to hear us as a rock and roll band with good mixing and good vocals.
What do you prefer, the Four-Way Street live set or Live at the Fillmore East 1969?
If I had to make a choice, I'd go with the Fillmore East things, because we can feel in that music how much we liked each other and how much we loved each other and how much we loved the music. I mean, there's part of one of the tracks, I think it was Helplessly Hoping, where we do a wrong note, not a wrong note, but something that was different that really made it, and we had to laugh, and we do on the record.
So at that time, you guys were making $50,000 a night, which is what, like $7 trillion back then?
It was a lot of money.
Yeah, that is crazy. I mean, and I bring that up to illustrate that you had to really have wanted to walk to say goodbye to that. Because that, I don't care what kind of ideals you have, $50,000 a night is a lot to say goodbye to.
I remember one of the nights when we'd do a couple of encores and the crowd was going crazy, and then we went up into our dressing room, and then Bill Graham came knocking on the door and said, "Come on, do another encore." And we said, "No, we've fucking done 3 already. No. And Bill said, "Come on, please." And money, more money. And then it was Neil that put, I think, $800 in bills underneath the door. And when we said, okay, and we went and did another encore.
It's amazing. I love that story. And it is $800. At least in your book, it's $800.
Yeah.
I don't really rate live albums, but if pushed, I would give Four-Way Street 5 stars. And then Live at the Fillmore East 69, I really like this as the before snapshot, because Four-Way Street is the after. It's the end of that era. And also, Live at the Fillmore East 69 was recorded on September 20th, which is exactly 10 days before Christine died. So It's a document of right before Crosby, the end of him not really having any problems in his life, so to speak.
Right.
All right, that about does it. Stay tuned, because next week we've got part 6 of our Pet Sounds deep dive. Okay, here's the week up ahead. This Sunday, our weekly show within a show, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast, drops for our Patreon's private tier. These are real people with talent and a burning fire deep inside, just like you and I. Then come Monday, the major tier gets a very special treat. Monday's bonus episode is another Chuck chat from the Chuck Granata Pet Sounds Interview Series. This one with Larry Knechtel, the Wrecking Crew keyboard player and bassist who, along with Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys, has worked with Simon and Garfunkel, Duane Eddy, the Mamas and the Papas, the Monkees, the Doors, the Byrds, the Grassroots, Elvis Presley, Jerry Garcia, and Billy Joel. He was also a key member of the band Bread. Larry passed away a few years after this interview in 2009, which makes this posthumously released Chuck Chat yet another priceless buried treasure. There will be a very short sneak peek running publicly for free on Monday morning, but the entirety of the show will only be accessible on the major tier of our Patreon. Don't miss it, or you'll only be getting part of the story. And then on Wednesday, the Lieutenant tier gets their early release, ad-free, super extended director's cut of part 6 of the Pet Sounds Deep Dive. It's the episode as it was truly intended to be heard, with all the essentials left intact. And then come Friday, everyone else gets to join in on the action. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to my beautiful wife and son, Jen and Mason, Graham Nash, Richard Holland, Rudy Fishman, Becky Boyd, Jay Schultz, Bespoke LA, my mom, my dad, my incredibly loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community, the Soldiers of Sound. I love every last one of you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones. They're in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator, and much, much more. So make sure you don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, no sweat. Just email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you in the loop. So now that it's done and you want more, another way to dive even deeper into the classic rock and roll from the 1960s is to go to the Beach Boys Season 1, Catch a Wave, 1961 to 1964, from episode 189 on, the Righteous Brothers Bill Medley interview, that's 181 and 182, my interview with the Free Design, that's 160 to 162, my epic interview with the Mamas and Papas Michelle Phillips, that's 141 to 159, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, that's 137, my 12-hour interview with Terry Kirkman and Jules Alexander from the Association, that's 109 to 113, Vashti Bunyan reading her entire output, that's 103 to 104, Sergio Diaz from Os Mutantes, that's 86 and 87, Bert Summer, that's 83 and 84, Sweetwater is episode 79, a tribute to David Crosby, 77 and 78, Andrew Tuttle rates the Monks, 74, Jim Florentine on Black Sabbath is 64 to 68, Lou Barlow on the Zombies is 59 and 60, Marvin Gaye biographer David Ritz rates Marvin Gaye, that's 45 to 47. Blind Faith is 43. Anthony Fantano rates the Velvet Underground, it's 32 and 33. Bob Forrest rates the band is 25 and 27. Monkees manager Andrew Sandoval rates the Monkees, that's 22 and 23. Don Randy rates David Axelrod as 17. Badfinger is 16. The Bee Gees is 10 and 11. Sly and the Family Stone is 5, 6, and 7. And Pink Floyd is 1 and 2. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti!